for Center for Academic Excellence and a professor of psychology, and Dr. Mary McVeigh Noble, who is Assistant Clinical Director of Student Counseling Services. Diane, can you just introduce yourself and your area?
Sure, welcome. As Branka mentioned, I'm the Dean of the Center for Academic Excellence, and the Center for Academic Excellence is one of the support resources for students on campus. One of the functions of our office is to house some of the university's tutorial programs. So we actually are the largest of the university's tutorial programs. We offer both one-on-one and group drop-in tutoring to students for a wide variety of courses. In terms of the one-on-one tutoring that we have, students are able to sign up for up to 2 hours of free tutoring and up to 3 courses each week for the courses that we support. And in regards to the drop-in group tutoring format, those are offered, that format is offered for some of our more high demand courses where students want a lot of contact hours. And we have anywhere from 10 to 15 hours of available drop-in tutoring for those courses. Students do not have to sign up in advance. They just come any of the hours that they want to, as many or as little as they'd like. All of our tutoring this semester will be virtual. Both the one-on-one and group tutoring will be virtual this semester. Some of our students are living on campus who are doing the peer tutoring. Some are remote. And so that's the format that's going to support our students. We also have in our office success advising. We work with students on a one-on-one basis as well as in workshop formats on academic skills such as time management, organization, study skills. We also have a very close relationship with our faculty, and so many of our faculty, in addition to speaking with students if there's any concerns, they will bring the concerns to our attention. In case students are not forthcoming and make use of the services, it enables us to be able to reach out to the students, encourage them to come in and address what might be getting in the way of their success. And so those are some of the services that we offer through the Center for Academic Excellence, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you about this topic of mentoring your emerging adult today.
Thank you, Diane. Before Mary introduces herself, I just would like to mention that we will record this forum so parents who are not able to join us for the live stream are able to view later. Go ahead, Mary.
Hello, I'm Dr. Mary McVeigh Noble. I'm Assistant Clinical Director of Student Counseling Services, and we're part of your integrated health and counseling service on campus. We are located in the Wellness and Campus Living Center opposite Hofstra, USA, on the other side of campus. And we're actually located near the residence halls, so we're conveniently located to your students who are living on campus. We're offering a hybrid of both telehealth services, so we do virtual HIPAA-compliant Zoom therapy for students who would like to access that, as well as and that's individual and group therapy, as well as in-person therapy for students who need it. And we're doing that in our rooms that have been updated with therapists who have been outfitted with PPE. And we're located behind the health services center. And students are being served there as we speak. We work in collaboration with all of our DSA partners. We have great relationships with my friends Diane and Branka here, and with all of our other departments in the Division of Student Affairs. Our strength is in our collaboration, and we work to really provide an incredibly supportive environment for all of your students. And I really look forward to discussing your emerging adults and how to mentor them today.
So go ahead, Diane, you can start your presentation.
Okay, so I'll actually be starting. Thank you so much. So what is this term emerging adult? Emerging adults really refer to a category of human beings that aren't quite adults, but they're not quite adolescents either. These are usually individuals who are late adolescents up through individuals who are about 25 years old. And it really refers to more a neurological phase of development than it does anything else. We used to talk about being an adult when you turned 18, when you got to vote. And if, we recognize it realistically, you're not quite there yet. And that has more to do with your neurological maturity. We recognize that the prefrontal cortex, which is right up here, is the seat of executive functioning. That's pretty much planning, organization, impulse control, judgment. Really what keeps us kind of on point in the world. And it's like the boss of the brain, and that's not fully developed until we're 25 years old. And so, or thereabouts. And despite how incredibly mature some of our young adults can be, and how mature my 12 and 15-year-old tell me they are, they're not quite there yet. I remember that they're still a little bit, and I call it gooey in the middle. So when I think about it, I think about it like Jello in a mold. When I make Jello in the fridge, I pour it into a mold, and my kids have this habit of sticking their finger in it, and it's not quite done yet. They pull their finger out, it's covered in Jello. And I'm like, come on, stop. It's still gooey in the middle. And so are they, which is why they do that. And because they're a little bit, they're not really impulsive kids, but it's that little bit of difficulty managing impulses because they really want to see if the Jello is done yet and it really tastes good. And if we think about it, the more the brain matures, the more firm, in a sense, it's becoming. But really, when we're looking at this period of neurological maturation, we're seeing a couple different competing processes occur. So we see the brain developing rapidly during this period. So intellectually, your young adults are capable of more than they ever were. I mean, it's a period of growth, neurologically speaking. Parallel to that, from like 0 to 3, they're learning to walk, they're learning to talk, they're learning their colors, their numbers, their shapes. It's incredible. It's like an explosion. This is an explosion too, just in a different way. We're hitting our peak intellectual capacity at this time. We're becoming the sharpest tacks we're ever going to become, which is amazing. When I think of what I could cram into my brain during this period, it was amazing. And at the same time, what we see also is that in order to hone the brain itself, in order to hone some of these strengths, it does a process of like self-evaluation. It looks at itself and it says, okay, what connections are the most efficient? I want to work faster and better. And so it looks at all of its connections and says, which are the most efficient, most frequently used pathways, which go faster than all the others, and which aren't as efficient or which aren't as frequently used. And in a process called pruning, like literally, think about it, you prune a plant, I just deadheaded my hydrangeas, it takes off, or the least often used or least efficient pathways are kind of sheared off. And it's good we're born with double or more of the brain cells we're ever going to use in a lifetime, so it doesn't hurt our brains in any way, except that maybe there was an adaptive connection on one of those less frequently used pathways, and maybe it was something that was, neuroprotective, meaning it was buffering us from developing the depression that ran in our family, or maybe it was buffering us and helping us cope with stress. And so when that pruning is occurring, sorry, delivery truck outside my window. when that pruning is occurring, we see an increased vulnerability to the development of different mental illnesses that occur at the same phase in time as an individual is subject to different stressors that they've never experienced previously in their life, like more erratic sleep patterns and more erratic eating, and maybe more social stressors, like dating stress that they may never have experienced before, and maybe exposure to what I like to call 5 crazy bosses that rotate every 3 months. That's called your professors. And you change your professors every 3 months. And so that's kind of something they may never have experienced in high school or middle school, because you kind of stick with the same professors. Maybe you have a couple classes that change mid-year, but usually you have a course or a professor throughout the year. And competing deadlines and just, different things like experimenting with substances, things that place the brain under different stress. And so we see the emergence of different psychiatric illnesses with an increased rate during this time period. So emerging adulthood is a concept that didn't used to exist, because basically you were a kid, you were at home, and then you worked, and that is what signaled adulthood, just the transition to work. But now we have an extended adolescence with really an emerging adulthood. They are in school, and we see a more natural unfolding of the normal neurological process. Okay, thanks. Okay, so every student is going to struggle. Struggle is not the problem. We want to be present to help them struggle well. And so when I was thinking about becoming a parent, I thought, I never want my child to struggle. And now as a parent, I recognize that struggle is what helps them feel efficacy. If I make things too easy, they don't feel like they've earned anything. My kids just finished their summer work, right? So they came home with summer math and summer reading. And I was like, you're going to do your summer work. So they had, even though they were, virtual from March through the end of the school year, they were assigned summer reading. They were like, well, I don't really have to do it, because I said, yeah, you do. And your summer math. And they were like, well, they're not going to really ask us. They're going to feel bad for us because it's a pandemic. I said, absolutely not. You're going to do your summer work. So they did it. I offered a small incentive. They wanted like a tapestry for each of their rooms. I said, fine, you can have your tapestry, but I let them sweat it out and struggle through their work, because I really wanted to. I said, 1, it's going to prepare you effectively for next year. 2, I'm immune to your complaints at this point in time. I listen, but it's not like I'm going to be like, oh no, you don't like it. Oh, it pierces my heart. No, they're allowed to complain, and I said, that's valid. You can complain. You don't have to like everything you do. But they felt so good when they finished their 2 books and multiple pages and pages of math and stuff. And they said, I knew more than I thought I did. That book was really good. This one really stunk, but I got through it anyway. It was great to see. And they felt accomplished. We can't avoid pain in life, right? Life involves some pain. If we could protect them from pain, that would be incredible, but we can't. And struggle is necessary. Suffering, though, is the thing that doesn't have to happen. Suffering happens when we try to avoid pain. So it's okay that you are struggling. Let's talk about what you need to get through this. Let's talk about how I can parent you differently, how I can, help you make the decision, because I'm not going to make the decision for you. Like when they're little kids, we tell them, don't do that. Don't do that. And when they're, say, middle schoolers, we say, well, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because they certainly don't have the cognitive or emotional capacity to maybe make those decisions. And now we can say, they say, well, I want to go do this thing, whatever this thing is, and that you may not think is a great idea. And if you say don't, they're going to go do the thing. So you may want to say, well, what do you think will happen if you do this thing? Let's play it out. Let's talk about what the consequences might be. And they might say nothing. There will be no consequences. And then you can say, well, I mean, it's seldom in life that we engage in an action for which there are no consequences. So, I mean, maybe it stinks to think about the consequences, but there will probably be some. And I'm not trying to be a downer, but let's talk about what they are. Maybe they could be good, and I'm not anticipating them. So you tell me about the good consequences that you think will come of this action. And maybe there will be some negative ones that you can't anticipate. I have a couple in mind. Maybe I can, tell you about those, and maybe you think those aren't valid. Let's talk about why, but let's talk about it. Let's talk it through. And I think that's how we can parent them differently. It's so interesting because you already see your parenting changing, and you're seeing that every day. And, we're in this period in the world of incredible stress and transition. Life is very different. And your parenting has probably changed in the last 6 to 8 months. It's probably a lot different than it was at the beginning of the pandemic. It's probably different than it was. You probably had a lot of more challenging and difficult conversations regarding politics and racial injustice and civil unrest, things that you hadn't even maybe ever spoken to your child about. Or maybe you had, maybe you'd always been engaged in those conversations. But parenting is different, and parenting is evolving always throughout their lifespans and our lifespans. And think of yourself as being really fortunate. I think of myself as being fortunate to be in a role where, I can ask questions that maybe have them think differently about what they're going to do. And I think that that's something that I really appreciate about being a parent of kids who are older versus little kids, and saying, don't do that. Mine are kind of in between. One is at the stage of like, I might not do that if I were you. And she says, why? And then I have a conversation like this. And the older one, I'm beginning to say, what do you hope to gain by doing that? Like, what's the function of that behavior? So, and sometimes he can explain and sometimes he can't. So we try to figure it out. Okay.
Great. So, adding on to what Mary has been saying, this transition, we're seeing a changing dynamic. I love this little picture here because, it shows the difference in this transition between other transitions in life, okay? And if we look at and think back on the first day of school, elementary school, kindergarten, preschool, we remember comforting our child as they started this new experience and needed some support to deal with their fears. And then when we think about the first day of college, the student may have many fears, is likely to have many fears, but our fears seem to be as intense, if not even greater, for our students because of our loss of control, our inability to be there for all of these challenges the way that we were able to be there in previous years. So it's interesting to see this dynamic change from, the child being more fearful than the parent, as opposed to the parent being more fearful than the child. And so I think Branca's office is here to support parents, and one of the things that is a constant dynamic for Branca working with parents of our incoming and continuing students is being mindful of what our needs are as parents and what our students' needs are. To what extent when we come forward as parents to express a concern, is the concern that we're expressing a concern of our student or only of ourselves? And so this is a reflection that we want to be thinking about as we're transitioning our students. Before we reach out, we might want to say to ourselves, is the concern that I'm having reflective of my students' concern or only my concern. And it's absolutely fine to reach out no matter what, but just being aware of that, of being cognizant of whether or not it's a concern merely for ourselves or it's a reflection of what the student is experiencing. It's a very difficult letting go process. We are here for you, Bronca's office especially, but it really helps to come from a place of starting of mindfulness of where our concerns are coming from, to what extent are things coming from situational factors versus sheer worry. And so it's just something we want you to think about as you face this transition. Another thing we want to be thinking about is that each parent, each student is coming in with different experiences. And I'm going to, list some of these different experiences. So there's not going to be any two students that are coming in on the same level for each of these in terms of their understanding of self. Some students are coming in with several years of self-reflection, really having a deep understanding of why they chose this college, why they are choosing this particular major, what they need out of a college, what they need out of university resources, etc. And other students haven't done as much self-reflection, haven't given as much consideration to some of these things. Each student and each parent coming in have different expectations of what they want this experience to be, this college experience, what they hope to gain academically, what they hope to gain socially, what they hope to gain emotionally. Some students and parents coming in see that or expect that what they get out of the experience academically, socially, emotionally is dependent upon what they put into it, and the extent to which they themselves engage in different opportunities. And others are really expecting to be exposed and to get out of it based on what is taught to them, what is presented to them, versus their own investment in exploration, so to speak. And there's no right or wrong with that. It's just, there's different expectations. Some students couldn't care less about the social experience. They're only completely interested in what they can gain academically out of being here. And other students, might really have the opposite view, that academically they want to do well enough to find an opportunity moving forward for a career, etc. But their real goal is to, or their bigger goal is to grow emotionally, to grow socially, to integrate and feel connected with people. We know that students coming in are at different points in terms of their help-seeking behavior. Some students have been in therapy for years, have come in very comfortable with receiving support, whether it's emotional support. Students coming in very comfortable with using academic support. Very comfortable with navigating resources. I know who to go to. I know who to go to for the dining hall in terms of what my allergies are and how I need to speak up to myself, etc. And other students, have not yet had that opportunity or have not yet felt the need for any of those resources. And then in terms of self-motivation, we know some parents are dropping off their students or transitioning their students. And they know that their students are very highly motivated, and they feel very confident in their ability to balance academics and their social life and different commitments. And other parents and other students really need a push, or not the parents need a push, but the parents feel their students need a push and are concerned about how self-motivated they are. And then, different levels of independence coming in as well. Some students report that, they've been getting themselves up for school, for years now, and getting out the door and knowing what they need to do from morning through nighttime. And others, this will be their first time setting an alarm, or it might be their first time driving this far to campus, or whatever else the case may be. So, we know that students are coming in from different places, and we are available to meet students where they're at. The growth process is going to be very different for each student. They will have different goals for themselves, and different roads that they'll be taking to navigate their experiences. So on that note, one of the things that we do with our first year students is we ask each student to complete a self-assessment. And we do this so that we have a better sense of students, where they're at, what their experiences have been, what their expectations are, and what strengths they have, what areas they expect to maybe struggle in a little bit during this transitional time. And we have been conducting the self-assessment for a few years now. I think we're in our fifth year of doing this. And so we basically, during orientation, this summer we met with students virtually, and we talked to them about what they expect their transitional experience to be like. What differences do they expect from high school to college? And what we've found over the past few years is that students tend to grossly underestimate the college transition. They tend to really minimize how big the transition is. They'll say things like, well, we expect the work to be harder, more work, more of it, a little more intensity. But most students haven't really given great thought to the fact that they're coming in as 17-year-olds, they're coming in as 18-year-olds, and for the past 13 years of those 17 years, or the past 13 years of those 18 years, they have been on a Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. schedule, or 8 to 3, 7 to 2, 9 to 4, whatever the case may be with school, and that they've been highly routinized for many, many years of their life, and that most of their courses have gone from Monday right into Tuesday, right into Wednesday, very small periods of time. They're kind of being told what to do from one day to the next by their teachers, often, getting some assistance from their parents in terms of other responsibilities. And so many of the students haven't given great thought to the fact that they will be taking classes that meet only once a week or twice a week, and that they will have breaks in between their schedule, that they won't have a constant 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. schedule, et cetera. And it's not until we stop and bring that to their attention that they really recognize that that challenge is going to come with a little bit of struggle. That our most organized and self-disciplined students often find that to be a little bit challenging. And so we have, resources to help them with that challenge. And we bring these kind of things to their attention, not to make them fearful, not to make students scared or anything like that, but just because if we're prepared, then, when those feelings of anxiety come up, or when those feelings of struggle come up, we can normalize it. We can say, this is what's expected from this experience. So we start with a conversation just about the transitional differences, ask them to bring to our attention others as we bring up topics that they might not have thought about. And then we have the students fill out a self-assessment and answer questions such as this one here. So, one question we ask is, what do you tend to do when given an assignment for a class? And the responses that you're going to see on the remaining slides are your students' responses. These are the responses of students who have completed the self-assessment during orientation this summer. We had over 60% of students respond to the questions, which is not quite as strong as it's been in the past, but also they, they were not in person in front of us to answer it in front of us. We had to kind of just kind of send it by email and hope that they would fill it out. So we thought the response rate was still very, very strong, considering they weren't filling it out right in front of us. So as you can see, most students are either, wonderfully, a good portion of students feel as though they work on assignments immediately and try to finish them as quickly as possible. But a large majority of students also either wait till the due date is approaching and or they might start it, but then kind of put it aside until closer to when the due date is. So just giving you an example of some of the ways that students answered questions. We also asked students, for which of the following reasons did you not utilize support services previously? So first, the student had to say whether or not they had, and if they hadn't utilized support services, what was the reason for it? So many students felt like they've never needed support before, that their busy schedules kind of prevented them from seeking support. This one was interesting, that a lot of students, it's not unusual for students to have a hard time admitting when they need help. Almost 30% of students who did not seek help didn't seek help because it's hard for them to admit when they need help. And this is important to keep in mind as we think about other help-seeking behaviors for students. Some students felt that there were not services available in their high school. And then in terms of other reasons what students might have provided is some students just said, I didn't know it was a thing to actually get help, that it's something that I should be doing. Some students said that they felt bad asking their parents. They felt that maybe there was a financial constraint to getting support, if tutoring, for example. And then, other students said things along the lines of, I didn't know what I didn't know, which is kind of interesting as well. Another question that we asked of our students, of your students, is in high school, how often did you receive help from a family member on your assignment? And this year was actually kind of interesting. The rate was actually a little bit higher for students who admitted receiving help from family members on assignments. So if you look at the results here, almost 30% of students said that they receive help in terms of their actual academic work, at least some of the time. So this is important to recognize, because if this is your student who received your help or a sibling's help, or you're going to want to make sure that you turn them in the direction of the support that we have on campus this semester. We have a lot of supports. We have writing support, the writing center. We have math support. We have tutoring for a lot of classes. And so we're hoping to see that these 30% of students that are sometimes getting help from family members learn to utilize the resources that we have on campus. One of the things that we do when we meet with students during new student orientation is really, again, normalize this help-seeking behavior and let them know that in terms of the tutoring that we have for students, it's a peer tutoring model. The students will receive help from peers who've been successful in their courses. Due to academic integrity, academic honesty policies, students are not able to work on assignments with other students. Our tutoring is not an assignment-based type of support. It's conceptual. Students work with other students on the concepts in the class. But we also try to help students understand that, or to make the transition to working with other students as a preventative model as opposed to an intervention model. So, students are highly encouraged to use tutoring support from the very start of the semester to help comprehend the material, as the student's going along, to use the peer tutors as a study buddy, so to speak, so that it prevents any struggle, as opposed to thinking about tutoring as a service that is utilized when I'm doing poorly. We find that the large majority of students who use tutoring support throughout the semester, and not just as an intervention when they're doing poorly, end up, more often than not, earning grades of, B+ or higher in their courses. So, we've kind of done some analysis of who's used tutoring resources when, and it's not just for a student to prevent getting a poor grade, it's to turn C's into B's and B's into A's. And so this is the type of, assistance we're looking for students to understand. And so what we'd like to do at this point, we are encouraging you at this point to participate in our discussion. And we want you to think about, if, we asked your students, what do you think is the biggest academic challenge that you will face? And so what we want to know is, please feel free to turn on your mics and to participate, and tell us, what do you think your students would say are the biggest academic challenges they will face? And based on what you think they would say, what advice would you offer if your student came to you with this challenge? So what do you think are some of the biggest academic challenges your student will face? And if they came to you with this challenge, what would you say? Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Okay, sorry, my little scrolly is very sensitive. Just trying to see if any parents are participating.
Since I hear no parents, I will chime in with my children, and my children, if they had a problem in college, it would be time management. This would be it's a hard adjustment. Kayla, thank you. We opened the chat feature. If you feel more comfortable typing your input into the chat, you're very welcome to do so.
And just to let you know, I can't see, based on my shared screen, I can't see the chat answer, so please bring it to my attention if you see. I see a hand or two typing away, so I'm going to give it a minute before pulling up your students' responses.
Procrastination.
So, procrastination and fear of not being able to do the assignment.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. I think that's probably one of the more common things that we see, right? People procrastinate, usually not because they don't care, but because they care a lot and they want to do it really, really, really well. We see many students procrastinating because they just want to do the best job, and they don't know if they can do the best job, and they have really high expectations of themselves, and they don't know if they can meet their high expectations, and they get really anxious and say, I'll do it later. I'm going to binge watch The Office again before I do that, just to feel less anxious, because I need to know exactly what Stanley said in that episode, because they already know, but they need to know again. And I think that that's how the majority of procrastination happens. But then, I think we can, and we all, procrastination is part of the human condition. I think we all procrastinate because, especially if we don't like a task or we don't feel that we're going to be effective at it, or we're afraid that we can't get it the way that we want to get it, we put it off. But the problem is with that often we put it off till we don't have enough time to get it the way we want, or to do it adequately or nearly to the best of our ability. And so we create these catch-22s, right? So if I see someone near and dear to me, particularly a kid procrastinating, I say, hey, I noticed that you're putting this off. What's up with that? I think that you could probably do a really good job of it. What are your concerns about starting it?
Yeah, and so these are the responses here. You as parents obviously know your students well because you mentioned procrastination, and that is the #1 student response. What I love about using this data to speak with parents as well as working with students is that when we ask the students to complete this information, it's multifold. First of all, it's to have students be thinking about this before coming. What potential challenges might I have? What strengths do I have to lean on coming into this experience? What am I good at? And how can I use these strengths to work better with the things that are going to be challenges? Also, we let students know that based on what they say, based on this information, we will be reaching out to your students. The students who said that procrastination is their #1 concern, we will be reaching out to them and letting them know about resources that we have that's available to help attack these concerns, to help deal better with these concerns. So, we have let them know, and we hope that you will reinforce as well. When they hear from us, it's to prevent the struggle that, or to minimize the struggle. I shouldn't say prevent the struggle, but to minimize the struggle that they will have with some of these experiences. And it's important to keep in mind that, your students are definitely facing a different experience than students of previous semesters. They may have a balance of in-person classes, hybrid classes, online classes, and we will be adapting the tools that we have to help your students depending upon what their experience is. So procrastination might be a whole different animal if they're taking fully online classes. And for some students, they feel, wow, I'm so much better when I can work at my own pace or on my own terms than I am when I'm dealing with a more synchronized schedule. Other students find it to be more challenging. We don't know what your student's experience is going to be. We're going to need their help in helping to identify, what works well for them. But we are certainly trying to make students cognizant of what they anticipate some of these challenges might be, and then bring the resources, so to speak. We know that some students are not good about asking for help, and this is why we have a system in place where not only do we just make folks aware of the services that we have across campus, but we also do the outreach when we hear of concern. So if a faculty member makes us aware of a student's issues that they're having, we will do the outreach because we know not everybody is forthcoming. We know, not, and then it becomes an educational experience to say, this time around, you didn't seek help when you were faced with this struggle, but let's talk about that and how can we get you to, make use of resources if you're in this boat again in the future. You don't have to feel uncomfortable with this. You don't have to struggle as much as you are with this. Branka?
I would like to just emphasize what Diane is saying. Center for Academic Excellence, scroll through the pages of their site. They have great resources on their website, Center for Academic Excellence, Hofstra. I was just floored by the kind of planning the success advisors do in their group and one-on-one sessions. They don't just plan Okay, so you're going to have assignment due in October. They break down the task in half-hour increments, and they teach your student how to place this on their calendar, how to use those very simple tools to keep track of their assignments.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. And then, some of the needs that students have don't relate to our office, and then we're connecting students. So, we very rarely find that if a student's not doing well, it's just about not understanding the subject matter. It's often much more complicated than that. And so it's not only the resources of our office, but our ability to connect students with other offices as well, as we, unpeel what the complications are, and other things that can be helpful. So, a good amount of it, if we look at choice A and C and E, these are very much time management related issues, and, helping students improve those skills is life changing. It really is. But it also, when our ability to manage time gets in the way, sometimes there's other things going on as well. And sometimes it's a matter of a student's not happy with their courses because they're not happy in their major. And so they're avoiding work because they're miserable in their classes. And so that gives us an opportunity to connect students with the Center for Career Design or advising or counseling services. So, we really are trying to developmentally help your students along the way, all of our offices.
I think that's such a great point. The nice thing that I have found about working here is that we really are such a great community, and we really believe that we all belong to each other. And I think that we take such a great community approach to being present for your students. And what I can say is that they don't get shuffled around. I remember at my undergraduate institution, I went to Rutgers, really big school, and we had this, I won't say what we called it, but it was basically equivalent to being shuffled through Rutgers. And when any of the offices in the Division of Student Affairs is dealing with a student and we need to connect them to another office, I'm not saying go to this office. I'm sitting with that student and I'm calling that office and saying, Diane, Bronca, whoever, Julie, anybody, Anita, I'm sitting with a student. Can I say her name? Sure. Okay, because I need their permission because of HIPAA. Um, um, I'm sitting with a student and they're experiencing this, and I'd like to connect them with your office. Can I make that connection now? And they say, yes, of course, because we really take this surround approach and we like to connect each other, students to each other, because we really find that when we can do that, it works so much better.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to move on to another question for parents. What do you think are your students' greatest concerns as they transition to college in general? What transitions are you most concerned about? And have you had any conversations with your students about these concerns? This is an important slide here, very big. So, do you have any ideas of what you think your students' greatest concerns are as they make this transition? What what transitions are you most concerned about as a parent? And have you had conversations with your students about these concerns? If anyone would like to either participate via unmuting or chat, that's great. I'm going to put up what your students said as responses, and then please feel free to add to these or respond accordingly. So this is what your students had to say. That, most students are concerned either about the rigor of the college coursework or balancing academics and social life, about time management. So I think their self-awareness is very good. You know, things are making sense from one question. The way they answer one question to the next, it makes a lot of sense. We are very much hoping that this self-awareness leads to utilizing some of the resources we have to make them feel good about these you know, these potential challenges. We have things to help them. Interestingly, homesickness went down a little bit in terms of students' concerns. Usually we see more like 8% of students who are more concerned about homesickness. It could be that some of our first-year students are opting more to work remotely. That's a possibility, and that could explain they're not as likely to be to have homesickness, because maybe they are taking courses remotely. Feeling lost on campus, finding where things are. You know, this is a typical pattern for students, this percent. In terms of being a commuter student, finding my place on campus. Again, you know, I mentioned that we will respond to your students according to their responses. Those students who answered choice E, we reach out to them and we connect them to Anita Ellis's office, Commuting Student Services, and get them involved right away. And what I find very interesting about this year, certainly not surprising, but if we look at, you know, choices F and G, you know, concerns about managing fears and anxiety, concerns about how the COVID pandemic, almost 25, you know, a little more than 25% of our students, 1 out of every 4 students is either concerned about managing their anxiety or concerns about how the COVID pandemic will impact their academic experience. And this certainly makes a lot of sense, that this would be their concerns. And, you know, this is, you know, why keeping open communication is just so important, and the connections with our offices, having not only conversations with their peers sometimes heighten one another's anxieties as opposed to alleviating each other's anxieties. So their connections with our offices are so important so that we can help them as they work through these struggles.
Bronca, you're on mute.
Diane, I would like to just read what parents said.
Great, because I can't see those responses. Thank you, Bronca.
A little anxiety about the unknown and the virus. Socializing in a time when so much is online, not letting anxiety overwhelm her ability to succeed.
So, if it's okay, and Diane, I feel badly because I keep interrupting you
No.
talk.
I would love for you to, you're the expert here.
So are you. So are we. You know, so is everybody who works with their students. I think that's, you know, part of our strength. And so I think as parents, you have, you know, the question that Diane asked you, if you're, you know, you have these concerns for your students, how would you address these things with your students? And that's, to me, the most brilliant question that you could have asked, because this is an opportunity. You know, your students will call you and they will say, I'm worried, or, you know, I'm concerned, or you just have a unique opportunity to talk to them about these things. And it makes sense if they are feeling nervous about the unknown or nervous about the virus. Global pandemics happen once a century. Most people living currently have never experienced one before. And so there are certain things in our lives that our responses of anxiety or fear are completely accurate with regard to. It makes sense that we would feel some anxiety about the unknown in a time of great uncertainty during a global pandemic. That makes sense. So we first want to validate and say, things are uncertain. The issue is that a lot of times we have more of an illusory sense of certainty than, like in the past, maybe we thought things were more certain really than they were, right? So maybe we were living with a greater sense of certainty than really was actual. So we can say, Here's what you can control. You can control what you do. The control you have is over your actions and your words, here and now today. So we're not certain about tomorrow. And I know it feels scary because we feel like we have no control over anything, but that isn't true. Remember, the control you have is over what you do and what you say. Not always what we think, because worries can creep in, and not over what we feel, because feelings just happen, but we can control what we do and what we say. We can't control what other people do or think or feel, but what we do and what we say here and now. And you can remind them of that and say, that's a big deal. Maybe we don't always want to control what we do and what we say here and now, but that's a lot of control. In fact, if we focus on here and now, not on what happened already, because we can't change that, that's already gone, and not on what will happen, because that's the future, but what we do and say now impacts the future. The past, like, let it go, it's gone. Let it go, like Elsa, right? Like, let it go. But right now, you have this incredible opportunity to belong to part of a community. And if we can all remember that we belong to each other, and we can operate and act from the mindset of belonging to each other, and remember that your actions in this moment impact not just you, but other people. But remember that how you treat them and how you act and what you say will in turn trigger reactions in them, and that will impact how they act back, right? So that is control, and that's control over some of those consequences. So you have more control than you know. So control the controllables. You control what you eat and when you sleep and for how long you sleep, and the help that you seek, and what you're doing, and things like mask wearing. We have a policy requiring that in social spaces students wear masks. That's really important. You're wearing a mask means it's showing something, it's demonstrating something, as well as engaging in a health-related behavior. It's showing other people, I actually care about your well-being, and that speaks volumes. And so when you do that, not only do you keep yourself safe, but you also show something to other people, right? When you, and if your student says, why do I have to wear a mask? I mean, come on. I saw somebody else not wearing a mask. I'm not wearing a mask. Fine, I'll just put it over my mouth. I'll leave my nose out. Now wear it over your whole face. Okay, and I use the pants analogy. Okay, imagine we all went outside without pants. Don't, but imagine. Okay, nobody wore pants, not even underpants. Okay, imagine you're just walking around outside, no pants, and imagine you're standing right near someone and they peed. Somebody just urinated, and neither of you has pants on. I mean, that's gross. Their pee's going to get right on you, right? Ew, I don't want that. So I'm going to put on pants. I'm going to pants myself up. And I'm just going to keep my pants on all the time when I'm in public. But then what if the other person is just walking around free as a bird, no pants, and they pee? I mean, less of their pee is going to get on me because I'm going to have some pants on, but still some's going to get on me. But if they are also wearing pants and they pee, their pee is in their pants, not mine. And that's great. Everybody wear pants, please. Everybody wear pants and masks, because they'll get it. They go, right, the pee is the virus. Thanks, Mom. But it's true. And it sends a message to other people. You belong to me. Even the people we don't want to claim, the ones that we don't want to be ours, they're still ours. Even the ones we don't want to take responsibility for, they're still our responsibility. And if we imagine we operated in a world where we all truly felt that and believed that and demonstrated that behaviorally, where we all treated each other, whether we liked each other or not, as if we were each other's responsibility, and where we treated each other like, you're mine, you matter to me. Wow, so many fewer problems would be existing. People wouldn't be treated like other, and we wouldn't be harming each other. And civil discourse would be a thing. So if they ask you about these things, you control you, your actions, and your words here and now. That's what you can control. I know it feels like you can't control anything, but you can. These powerful things, you and your actions and your words, those have a huge impact when you're part of a community. And here you are, and we all belong to each other. And if you operate like that and you engage in behaviors that show that, things go better. And now let's look at all the other, I know there are this universe of things you can't control. Let's focus on what you can control. What can you control? And that can really begin to bring the anxiety down. Let's talk about what you can control, right? And we can manage our own risk factors. We can't control other people's behavior, but we can manage our own risk factors for contracting the virus by engaging in certain health-related behaviors. And that's what you can control. Okay, I'll shut up.
No, and actually, I would love to add to what you said, Mary. Knowing that right in front of us, 26% of students are either concerned about managing their own fears and anxiety or concerns about the COVID pandemic. Adding to what Mary said, I mean, if we think about our own lives, the past 6+ months have been extremely difficult. And when I think about folks who have handled um, who express that they're doing okay with the pandemic or doing okay with how they're managing themselves, it is their ability to focus on what they can control. It's their ability to say, you know what, I know I can't control what other people are doing or what's happening in the world, but I was able to control my exercise, and I got out and I walked because it made me feel good. That's something that was important to me. Or I made little projects for myself because it made me feel like I was using my time meaningfully, etc. And so when your students come to you with these anxieties and fears about COVID, or just other fears that are not within their control, other people's choices, etc., it's great to bring them back to a place of what can they control. How can you put that put that into your academics, put that into your social goals, put that into your on-campus, off-campus Zoom experiences. It will help them tremendously to set, and that's one of the things that our offices will work with students. What are some actionable goals that you can work on to make a difficult time less difficult? Not taking away the difficulty, not like Mary said, we're not taking away the struggle, but how can we use struggle productively? And so this is really how we're going to try to work with your students, and we encourage you to bring them to this place as well. Bronca, did you want to add anything, or should I move on?
No, please move on.
Okay.
You said it all.
Okay, so the last of the questions we wanted to ask you is, what type of questions do you think you should be asking your student throughout the semester? And based on the questions that you ask and the response that a student provides to you, what responses would raise a flag for you? So we'd love to know from your perspective what you think you should be asking your students. If you fall short of questions, we will offer you some recommendations, but we would really love to hear what you think would be nice, productive questions to ask your student. And depending upon what they say, what responses would be a flag raiser that you should either contact Bronca's office or, know that it's something that would be a moment of outreach. Bronca, please let me know if suggestions are coming up, and if not, we can.
You can go ahead.
Okay, great. Mary, would you like to take the lead on this in terms of some nice open-ended questions, or?
Sure. So, oh, somebody did come up with one. Hold up. How are your class? So a parent wrote in that they would ask, how are your classes? What have you been doing in your free time? And what have you been eating, etc.? Those are great questions.
Excellent, excellent questions.
I like those questions.
I have a suggestion for one of the question. Instead of how are your classes, I would ask, okay, in this biology class, what did you learn this week? I mean, be more specific. What do you think, Mary?
So I think that can work. Sometimes, I ask my kids what they learned, and it's like they get into the nitty gritty of something. I'm like, all right, yeah, kid. So, you know, tell me what you loved about this class. Tell me about this professor. You said last week that this professor was really, challenging. What's challenging? Are you still hating that class? You told me you didn't like that. What's going on there? Um, you told me that this thing was a particular challenge. Has that resolved? Just following up. Sometimes keeping notes. You can keep notes just so you know how to circle back and check in on it. Because it's easy to lose track when they have that many classes and, they're talking about a lot of things. Some kids talk a lot. Some kids don't talk a lot. It can be a lot. You like to ask your kids to tell you 3 great things from this past week to focus on the positive. That's great. That's great. I like that a lot. Um, One of the things we like to ask our college students about is sleep, because when we look at the development of, some things that can be concerning to us, we usually look at their biologics, sleep and appetite. Um, and when we see significant shifts in terms of baseline, one of the 2 giveaways for me is, how are you sleeping? Tell me about your sleep habits. How's the quality of your sleep? And okay, we know college students aren't like amazing sleepers. They stay up really late and they sleep really late. And I mean, adolescents need almost as much sleep as toddlers. They really do. They usually need about 10 hours of sleep a night. They don't get 10 hours of sleep a night, so they're really tired a lot. And if you say, hey, I think it would be really good for you to like go to bed at 10, they'll laugh at you in your face. But it's probably a good idea so they can get up when they need to get up. Not happening. So just ask them how they're sleeping, what the quality of their sleep is like. Or if they have erratic sleep habits, ask them if there's been any change in their sleep habits, their eating habits. How do you find the food on campus? Where's your favorite place to get food? What's it like? They're using this app called Boost to manage the lines and, scheduling times to prevent too many groups of people trying to get food at one time. How do you like that app Boost? Where are you getting your food from? What types of food do you like to get? Stuff like that, and just kind of tell me about your experiences. So we can find out, how's your roommate? How's that going? Like, tell me about your roommate. The open-ended questions are great because then they don't feel like you're expecting anything in particular, either good or bad, because sometimes they just want to please us and they don't want to worry us and they only want us to think good things. Or other times, they want to, if some kids, have a tendency to seek reinforcement in less positive ways, but you can just leave it open. Just tell me about it. How is it? You know? And if it's not good, they can tell you about it. And if it's really good, they can tell you about it. And if it's just a difficult day or a great day or kind of just a day, I don't know, really likes cherry Pop Tarts. but whatever, you know, they can tell you about it.
And you know your students better than anyone. And you know how they tend to answer things. So the parent who mentioned asking, you know, tell me about 3 positive things this week or whatever, you know, that question might be great if you know your child always frames things in a negative way or might pick a complaint before they pick a positive thing. Your students may not always be honest with you because, like Mary said, they might be afraid of disappointing you or, you know, is this what you want to hear? I know, for example, my son is the opposite of that, where in terms of he's going to make everything seem good. And so I have to ask questions that might get at things that aren't going well that I might not pick up on, so to speak. So if you have a student that tends to not see the positive in things, it definitely is good to frame a question so that you can find out the good things that are going on mixed in, you know, and the opposite might be true as well. I as a parent, might have to ask my son a question that gets at something that's really bothering him that I might not have picked up on. So you know your students well, the best, and you know, it's in order to really support your student best and not be overly concerned or overly outreach or whatever the case may be, you know, you got to, it's helpful to get a gauge on, does this seem to be within the normal limits of how my student typically responds. So for example, if we know our student is often responds with drama, if they tell us something that sounds dramatic, we might have to ask a few more digging questions before we panic because we know that's a characteristic of our student. If we know our student is a minimizer and barely ever complains, and we hear these little hints of complaints that are coming in or concerns that are coming in, it's a good time to dig a little deeper because we know it takes a lot for that student to say something. So, you know, knowing your student is a great place to start and gauging from there.
That's such a great point.
And thank you for this point from a parent. FaceTime to actually see your child.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Getting the visual is so critical. Um, you know, I think being able to do the HIPAA compliant Zoom therapy that we do is amazing for this, because there have been times in the past when people have needed to not come into the office, but and we need to connect with them, and we haven't had this incredible resource. I mean, yeah, there was Skype. Skype wasn't great, and it wasn't HIPAA compliant, but this is outstanding, and it's clear, and it's great, and it offers us such a outstanding ability to properly, you know, visually assess somebody as well. So you get to visually assess your child over FaceTime, and that's just wonderful.
Yeah, that's a great point. So here are some either overlapping or additional questions you might want to think about. And I think most of these, yeah, we covered some of them. But what's nice about questions like these is they're open-ended and it gives them an opportunity to express themselves as opposed to affirming what we're thinking or feeling. If we ask them a, you know, yes, no questions, sometimes it's leading. And so these open-ended questions are really a good way to go to get at what they're thinking and feeling.
Diane, I would like to plagiarize Mary, and she always has good ideas. In one of the past workshops, Mary, you talked about what do we do when we see that our child is not making a good choice, and you mentioned asking a question that I remember, and I will post in the chat feature. Do you like your choice?
Yeah,
Can you expand on this, Mary?
sure. So frequently my kids make choices that I am not in love with. But they are. And well, you know, I ask it really sometimes in all seriousness. You know, I ask it a few ways. So I might ask, what do you think, what do you think of your choice? Tell me why you like your choice. Um, and sometimes they really haven't thought it through. They're just like, I just like it. I just like my choice. And if we're talking it through, I'm saying it is your choice. It's not my choice. Um, it's not my choice to even make sometimes, because it's something personal to them. Um, I often will say, um, it's theirs. It belongs to them. And I want them to feel that so that they don't have to defend it. But I'll say, like, tell me what you like about your choice. I want you to know that, let's talk about the positives and the negatives of your choice. I want to understand, um, like, why, like, what's behind this choice. I want to really, like, let's think about the consequences of this choice. We can expand that question out in so many ways. And it's okay if you don't like your choice. I know you're saying, this is my choice. It is. And if you don't like your choice, we can deal with it, right? So I have 2 kids, different, wow. Um, and becoming less different, which is really interesting. So my son's really careful about the choices that he makes. And he agonizes over them. It's really hard for him to choose, even down to like, oh, which ice cream? I don't know. Should I get this or this? And it becomes like the burning question, the flavor of ice cream. My daughter's like, I don't know, pick an ice cream. Pick it. Just pick it. And then she'll be like, I don't like my ice cream. He's like, see, if you thought more about your ice cream, you would have liked your ice cream better. And then it's like bickering. Um, so, um, so now she's like, I don't know, what kind of ice cream? I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, you're going between 2 flavors that you like. Ultimately, you will wind up with ice cream. It's not like you're winding up with like a can of baked beans or ice cream. It's ice cream. So, I mean, if you really enjoy baked beans, by all means, but it's ice cream. So a lot of times they're choosing between 2 things that are good. And if it is, we can. But if we see them really steering towards something that is not good, you can say, listen, this is part of the struggle. What's making you really like that thing? Why are you, making that choice? Do you really like that choice? What's behind that choice? Um, and I want you to know that whatever you choose, I'm here for you. And I can work that through with you. Because I'd rather they choose with some thought, with some supportive questioning, with a little bit of scaffolding, of some good questions to help them think about their choice, versus make a really impulsive choice without any of those questions, or not make a choice at all because they get so tied up in perfectionism that they're just stuck and paralyzed. I want them to learn to make choices, and I want them to make choices they don't like so they can learn to tolerate making choices that they don't like, getting ice cream that they're not in love with and being like, nah, it's ice cream, or saying, I really made the wrong choice. Well, let's look about what made this the wrong choice for you, and let's see if there's anything we can do to resolve it, or just dealing with it. Like, I got sneakers that I hated. Now I hate my sneakers. Well, I can't fix that, because you kind of got to stick with the sneakers that you have till you outgrow. Unfortunately, you grow like a science fiction movie. So, they're yours for 2 months. But let's think about why you got them. I don't know. My friend has them. Okay, but did you think about what you like? Nah, I just got them because Sean has them. Well, you and Sean are different people. Let's think about what you like next time. So, things like that. Because we learn as much from the choices that don't work for us as we do. If I only ever made good choices, or the best choices, or the perfect choices, or the right choices, I would literally have learned nothing in my life. Just saying.
That's wonderful. And this goes nicely into this question: how can you show trust and support to your students? One of the things that I was thinking about that Mary said, and please, parents, please respond to this as I'm speaking. You know, I know that my son will often bring up conversations with me that are not about him, but about choices that his friends are making to get a gauge on how I am thinking and feeling. So they're great opportunities, and you might have already found with your students in high school, but you're likely to find this as well continuing moving forward, that your students are going to bring to your attention the behaviors of other students, and they're often trying to get a gauge on how you think and feel and react, and it's a great talking opportunity with students. And so, for example, you know, my son recently said to me that a friend of his decided to have a name change. And, you know, I felt that he was bringing this up to get my sense of how I felt about this. And it was a great opportunity for me to say to him, you know, how do you feel about your name? Do you ever think about this? Is this something, you know, that you think about from time to time? And if so, why? And if so, why not? You know, not that I said it in that exact order, but it was a great opportunity for me to say to him, you know, William, I would support you if for some reason you ever felt that, you know, you weren't comfortable with X, Y, and Z, you know, as the conversation progressed. And, you know, sometimes your students will bring to you actions of others to just see where you stand. And it doesn't mean that they're thinking about those same choices or anything like that, but they're just looking to know where you stand. And so look for the opportunities.
I would like to address, Diane, your question, how can you show trust? I think by listening, just by stopping and listening to your student, and then listening some more, you are doing a great job to being their anchor and to let them vent. That's what they need. And by listening, you're really showing respect to your young adult, emerging adult, um, because you are showing that they are in charge. They own their journey, and they are the ones who will make that decision.
Definitely.
You know, another way to show trust is, you know, we want to give them the answers sometimes. And I think it's okay to say, I trust that you will make a good decision. It might not be the decision that I would make, but you're asking me what you should do on something that is so much your choice. And you know, I believe that you can make the right choice here. If you want to talk it through what the choices are, if you want to clarify maybe how you're thinking about it, that's fine. But I'm going to trust you to make the right choice here. Because that shows, oh, this person has confidence in me. This person who's known me like literally all my life has total trust that I can at least do it. Doesn't mean that I will make the right choice, but they believe that I can, which means I can. They are basing this on some knowledge. It's not like you're handing them the keys to a 747 and saying, fly. You know, you are basing this in fact because you're saying, I've seen you make good decisions before, and I know you have the skill set to do this. So it's based in something that you know they know how to do. So I trust that you can make the right decision here. We can talk about it and you can choose.
Absolutely, which is a great segue into resilience. So, you know, Branka had mentioned the importance of listening to what your students say to you, you know, that one of the best things we can do is just to listen to see what they are bringing up to us and what's on their mind. And also, you know, part of being resilient is just making sure that we help our students understand that self-reliance is an incredibly important developmental milestone, and that there will be need for scaffolding along the way. They will need the support. They will need to test and hear and know what you're thinking and feeling, but helping them transition to put it back on them to see where they are at, and not to just be a reflection of what we're thinking and feeling, and what our opinions are, but to kind of know where they're at and know what's good for their own growth and development and interests. And I know that during parent orientation, one of the things that parents said is that they most hope to have as a goal for their students is happiness, is what they really hope that they will accomplish over the next 4 years is reaching the milestone of finding out what makes them happy, of journeying to the point of knowing what they want and what feels right for them. And the only way that they're going to get there is through the self-exploration of what works for them and where they are at with their decision making and ability to rely on themselves as a resource.
I would like to also add that it's okay to let your first year student or even upperclassmen sit in discomfort, because sitting in discomfort is our children learning that they can go through obstacles and challenges and they can overcome them. And if you give ownership of that journey to them rather than you fixing the problem, you're really teaching a good life skill.
100%. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Any additional parental feedback, Bronca?
Now you can conclude.
Okay. So if you have any questions that we have not answered, or if anything on your mind that relates to this topic that we have brought to you today, we are more than happy to answer those questions now, address those questions, concerns, thoughts.
I know that our parents are very busy with the move-in, with preparing for the new semester, and on a Monday we are recording this, we'll post this online. You certainly can email me, and if you have any questions for Diane or Mary, just let me know. I'll ask them. They are also busy with their appointments, but we'll absolutely include you and answer your questions. And I would love to thank our very busy, my very busy colleagues, Diane and Mary, for being here and sharing their expertise. And I thank parents who are here and for your questions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And bye-bye. We'll see you soon.